In Ghana, the main government agency responsible for agricultural policy is the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, MOFA. And the ministry carries out this role in close collaboration with the Ministry of Finance, the National Development Planning Commission, and development partners.
The ministry also have departments and agencies in the rural areas, in the districts and especially regions, and these departments are supposed to hold consultative meetings with the local people so that their inputs can be made at the national level.
We also have local and international NGOs as well as agri-businesses that have direct responsibilities for agricultural policies. Communities play a very integral role when it comes to district level policies. Communities have their own structures where they have assemblymen, assemblywomen, they have traditional authorities. For instance, in the area of community mobilization for infrastructure and development works, they come in handy as well when it comes to management of natural resources within their communities.
There are so many actors in policy making. There is issues of power, there is issues of negotiation, there's networking, because most of these departments, development partners, most of the actors are actually pushing for their interests. And most of them are so powerful that they are in positions where they have access to decision makers, where they are financially resourced. And therefore, there's always that kind of negotiation and lobbying so that other people's interests could be put forth in policies.
In spite of the numerous agricultural policies over the years, policy implementation is generally weak and ineffective. A study on Ghana's agriculture published by the World Bank in 2018 found that the sector only received 5.2% of total government spending between 2001 and 2014. This goes against the 2003 Maputo Declaration, in which African governments committed to allocating at least 10% of their national budgets to agriculture by 2008.
For a long time, the budget allocation to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture has always been very low. In 2018, the ministry requested for 1.8 billion Ghana cedis, and unfortunately, they were given 598 million Ghana cedis, and this represents just about 33% of what they requested. And these approved amounts are supposed to be reallocated to about 16 departments and agencies under the ministry.
Inadequate and delayed funds militate against successful implementation of government policies at the district level. If you talk to them, they will tell you that money is not just simply forthcoming. Sometimes you'll be in the third quarter and first quarter subvention will now be coming in.
Additionally, policy implementation at the local level is dominated by agribusiness and NGOs and not the Ghanaian state. These non-state actors, depending on their goals, have tended to pay more attention to certain crops and categories of farmers than to others.
It is important that government is able to own and fund policies because government knows the kind of policies that would contribute to the development of the nation, that will contribute to poverty alleviation and also enhance the rural sector. So if they leave it for donors and development partners to take control, then they are going to do selective implementation of policies, and that does not augur well for the nation. Apart from that, not much research is undertaken to inform policies. There is poor data. For instance, in the country, we don't even know the number of farmers. We don't have gender disaggregated data to be able to inform policies that we are always formulating.
Decentralization is fraught with some challenges of incomplete devolution, financial challenges, human resource challenges, and unequal participation at the district or municipal assembly level. If powers are decentralized to actors who are not accountable to their constituents, and rather feel that they are accountable to the accounting and the appointing agency, and not to the people at the grassroots, then this leads to incomplete devolution. You have situations where DCs or MCs that are appointed feel that they are rather accountable to the appointing authority rather than the local people or their constituents. And when this happens, it leads to a lot of governance challenges.
Currently, we are talking about extension farmer ratio of 1:2000. And these extension officers need to move in order to perform their duties and provide services to farmers, because they are supposed to conduct dissemination services to farmers in terms of new technologies, in terms of research outcomes. And if they are not well resourced, it will be very difficult for them to reach out to farmers to be able to disseminate these new technologies for them to improve their situation.
The desire of successive governments of Ghana has been to increase productivity of agriculture and economic growth, reduce poverty and improve food security and the conditions of workers. These goals cannot be achieved without serious attention to the problems of the agricultural sector. A transformed and vibrant agriculture is not only key to poverty alleviation and food security, but also national development.
In the 1980s, where the World Bank and IMF policies prescribe state removal from the market, now we see that institutions are very important, and therefore it is important that institutions, especially in agriculture, are well resourced so that they can be able to perform efficiently. If agriculture has to be modernized, if it has to be a way of alleviating poverty, if it has to be a way of prescribe state removal from the market, now we see that institutions are very important, and therefore it is important that institutions, especially in agriculture, are well resourced so that they can be able to perform efficiently.
The last 30 years, the state has been discouraged from certain kinds of involvement in agriculture because of the belief that the private sector would deal with these matters better than the state would. I think our experience is suggesting that the private sector has not proved very capable, or in some cases interested, in solving some of the most serious problems of agriculture. And frankly, some of those issues are not the province of the private sector. So it's important to rethink how the state involves itself in agriculture to ensure that some of these persistent problems are addressed. Because only then can we have agriculture which is vibrant and sustainable and also addresses the problem of food insecurity.
There's a need to think more innovatively about how to make credit more accessible to farmers at a lower cost. Policy has to focus on how to educate farmers to use the right type of agrochemicals so as to safeguard the environment and to protect themselves. Farmers are concerned about the jobs of their children because they invest a lot of money in children's education and they expect to see some returns from that investment. And so when unemployment levels are high, particularly for the youth and for graduates, it worries farmers also because they feel that their investments have not been worthwhile.
In the 60s and 70s, there were several cooperatives in Ghana. And because of certain weaknesses that we saw in cooperatives were jettisoned as an important way in which farmers could come together and solve their problems. We need to take a second look at cooperatives and give them the needed support to ensure that they are robust enough and supportive enough to deal with some of the burning questions that farmers continue to face in agriculture.
Averagely, people are increasing yields. But yields are also tied to population, and the food must reach the entire population. And because it must reach the entire population, it must move. And if it has to move, it means transportation must be cheaper to make food cheaper. Where I'm coming from is basically agriculture that we think will contribute to the total emancipation of the people, total liberation of the people from endemic poverty. And this calls for one development indicator, and that is motorable roads and irrigatable dams.